discussion and action items. Want to introduce the first item, Superintendent?
Sure, thank you. We have Mr. John Baker here tonight with Swinnerton and to give us our ECCL update. Thank you also Turner Construction for being here tonight. Appreciate you listening in.
Good evening. The update for September tonight. Most of it, this is all related to project closeout and completion. If we need a reference, I think everyone now knows which buildings are which. I've used for 2 years this diagram, but I think we probably don't need it too much anymore. In terms of final completion, which is what we are geared for right now, the gates and fencing are now complete. I think there's some operational issues that were discussed here earlier. However, all of the painting is done except for some painting punch list items. The dampers to minimize the noise are now installed, all the gates. The planting and landscaping punch list, there are only a few items remaining. All the ceiling fans are now in. The DSA seismic issue was approved a couple weeks ago by DSA. Canopy 53rd Street is done. Actually, the power and data outlets, I think we've got most of those issues solved. And then punch list completion. Punch list completion, we only have about 25 items left. We anticipate being able to recommend.
How many originally?
There were 3,000, and now we're down to 25. I think we'll be able to have the architects issue the notice of final completion this week. That's the goal we set was the end of October, and then the warranty period will commence. I think there's a little bit of, you'll see some evening work taking place, but we're really pretty much done. What's really left on the punch list is mostly painting items here and there. And then, we'll be complete. We have our closeout documents largely in. And then the only other work that will be remaining from the original project is the Walhalla. It'll be taking place around the end of the year. And then the City Art Program installation. We talked about a number of design issues last week, and these are still ongoing. We're having ongoing discussions with the architect about these. The concrete at the entry to Building C was repaired, and now we no longer have that step, was replaced. You'll see that step that was there is now at the entry to Annie Yates. The concrete steps now have some painting at the nosings of those to create more safety. We're still working on a solution to the cracked concrete at the Building C and Building D decks, and where DSK is putting forth another proposal to repair that. We're working with our hardware, our Keen contractor, Rex Keen, to change some door hardware and locks so that we can have some double doors here in Building C, not locked and work better for exiting. We're looking at solving the west end of the field where it slopes down, maybe doing some storage area there. And then the main thing is that if there are any design issues which come up, those need to be transmitted to the superintendent so that we can track those and discuss those with the architect. Let's see here. Actually, Lisa, this is last month's report, not the October report. There, I apologize. I had queued the wrong one up. There we go. Sorry, folks. You'll notice actually for 2 years we've had the rendering of the facility. Now we have photograph on the front piece. Again, we talked about these items. I do want to talk about some things that are issues. The door stops, we've had a number of those fail. We're in the process of looking through the documents and working on a solution to replace those with floor stops, so the doors will not hit those door stops and break the sheetrock. That's kind of one of the biggest issues we've had. We're going to replace and put door stops, floor stops that are on the floor, so those doors, the walls won't be damaged.
And repair the walls.
And repair the walls, of course. The concrete steps, we're going to do. Turner has offered at no cost to take a couple of these trip hazards out. One of them here from the grass area towards the K-8 school. They're going to cut that out and lower that so that won't be a trip hazard. And they've offered to do that at no cost to fix some of those items. This is, again, the entry to Annie Yates, which I mentioned earlier. We've taken that step out, so there's no longer a step there. We do have some issues with the canopies on rain days, and when we had some rains recently, we noticed that you'll see the blue sky there, that when it rains, some rain comes, the canopy doesn't catch it, and we get rain coming in at the entry to Building D. We discussed this again with DSK to see if there might be a low-cost solution to mitigating that. Similarly, the canopy between the high school in the background and Building E, it's pretty narrow, so when you get wind-driven rain, basically if you're walking down that pathway, that canopy doesn't do a whole lot. So we've asked DSK to look at some of these. We have probably half a dozen design issues that we've asked them to look into, kind of explain the history. But again, any design issues, I know that some of the teachers have brought this attention, should go to Dr. Rubio so that we can track these and see if there might be some solutions that we can come up with. This is the cracked concrete at the Building C deck.
And
again,
can you just pause there?
Sure.
What does that mean in terms of completions and punch lists? And
in
who's
terms of
gonna
completion
do
and
what?
punch lists, we're closing the Turner contract out.
Yeah.
There are
So
things.
That's with Turner.
Correct.
So the design issue is something like the canopy's too narrow. Say the architect says, well, we can add these things on either side somehow that are going to vastly improve that. Is that something that they take care of? Are they going to?
So far, DSK has been willing to propose some solutions at no additional cost, at least to discuss those. Like with any facility, when you open a facility, there are things that might not be working quite right. But the key thing here is to have a process where those are communicated to the superintendent. We then collect those items, and we've been meeting with Mark Cyberlick every couple of weeks to talk about those things. And they've offered to propose some solutions or some fixes that the district may want to consider.
I guess my concern, and I don't know if this is where President Affelt was heading, but this is a new process to me. This is my first time going through this, and it just feels kind of awkward, and I get worried because seeing this and how narrow it is, and I know it's not on Swinnerton, it's not on Turner, it's really a design issue, and watching the rain just come right in, and the kids are going to get, anytime it rains, they're going to get wet, right? So it's the one part of the campus where this idea doesn't work. It seems that at this point, when an architect maybe gets something wrong or one of their subcontractors gets something wrong, there's not a lot we can do outside of finding out what the redesign is, finding out what the additional costs are for the design and the additional costs to change it, I guess, right?
Right.
Okay.
Again, DSK is looking at a solution for the concrete, which is cracking of the decks. They've come up with a couple ideas that we really think won't work quite well, but that's ongoing. But we've kind of gotten down to just a handful of items that we're having them look at, but we're having ongoing discussions with them to see if there's some ways that we can fix those things. In terms of closeout, right now we are in the throes of the final change order negotiation with Turner. Those include concrete design issues, the site utility resequencing, which is very complex, but we're getting near to finishing that up. Changes to the site gates and fencing, final soil off-haul for soil which had to be taken to a landfill, and also Saturday work. So those 5 items are going to be coming up to the board at the November meeting. But I think those are the only items we need to bring to the board, but we're in the process of negotiating all of those. Punch list, again, is we've got about 25 items left. Once we get, I think that, again, DSK has got is doing the back checking of that, but again, I believe we'll meet our goal of reaching final completion at the end of this month, which is Friday. Building systems training is now complete. We're doing some retraining that the district has asked for at no cost to make sure that everyone is proficient in those systems. All of the operations and maintenance manuals are now in, and Ron Vose is sort of the keeper of those, along with city staff. Warranties and guarantees, those are all in and have been approved. The as-built documents have been submitted, have been approved by the inspectors of record. That's the key reviewer there. Again, during the warranty period, if there are things in those as-built documents that we find to be missing, Turner has an obligation to make sure that those are up to date. The DSA documentation is all complete. There's only one. There are 5 DSA permits Those are all closed out. I think 2 are closed out, 2 more this week, and there's only 1 we're leaving open, which is for the Walhalla. We need to leave that permit open until the Walhalla is installed. And then again, final completion, the date that we have got on our draft certificate is for Friday the 28th, and that commences the 2-year warranty period. We've also talked to the city and the district about how the warranty period works. Basically what happens is that there's a person at Turner who will field those inquiries, and they are required by contract to respond within 30 days. And in some cases, the district may work directly with a subcontractor. In some cases, Turner will do that, but Turner will field all those questions and then be in charge of making sure those repairs are made. I want to point out something that's important is that even if there was something that was missed on the punch list that comes up during that 2-year period, as long as it's in Turner's contract scope, it has to be repaired. So if you've got things like a door handle that fails a year and a half from now, they've got to fix that. They've got to come back and fix things as long as that warranty period proceeds. And we've been working with city and district staff to kind of talk about how that process works.
And I think I understand it, if I might ask. So I was leaving yesterday. I noticed we have another area where the water pools up here where the high school kids eat, the first section. So it was like a lake. And it's still wet from over a day ago. So because I'm not going through room to room inspecting every room, although I want to right now. So if we find things like that, we call someone to Turner.
That is correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right.
Dr. Ruber, I do want to add is that I will volunteer my time to do a walkthrough and to give you my notes on the site as well. With my experience as a school architect, I've seen numerous things that have caught my eye, and I want to bring those to attention to the powers that be. So you'll see some report on that in a future board meeting, if not sooner.
Thank you. That's great.
That's great. Thank you.
Excellent.
And that's the report for this month.
Can you say anything about the water fountains that we heard about
Yeah,
earlier?
that's actually the first I've heard of that, and I want to make sure that gets on our list. There were a couple fountains that we knew weren't working, but apparently that's a larger problem. Sounds like it's a larger problem that I was aware of, but I will make sure that we talk to Turner about that tomorrow.
Okay. So yeah, can you go around and check all the fountains?
And I don't think that's on the punch list either, so I'll make sure that we take care of that.
One other question, I'm sorry, Mr. Baker. When we close out the project, does that mean the punch list is, the current punch list is done and we don't do it until that time, or is it too late to add? I mean,
No, so here's how it works, is that the best practice really is when you only have a handful of punch list items. If you drag those on, for one thing, we need to close out the insurance, the construction insurance. That's the main thing. We'll have a handful of items left, probably like a dozen. Those will become warranty items, and then new items you identify that you would normally go on a punch list, they become warranty items.
Okay.
And those are conveyed to Turner, and they have an obligation to repair those.
thank you.
Mr. Baker, could you provide a list of those to the board as far as the
Yes,
outstanding
be
punch
happy
list
to.
items?
Sure.
And the, I don't know if it's your department or superintendent's, about the gates, the buzzers, the cameras out there to get people in and out.
Our first roadblock was we purchased a device from Home Depot, which I think is called a Ring, R-I-N-G. I think homeowners use it at their homes as well. It has a camera and a buzzer. The county was blocking the web address for that, so they saw it as spam or something. So we've gotten that fixed. So I just texted Alex, our IT guy, when the parents were speaking, to find out where are we at, why isn't this working yet. So we're going to go ahead and make sure we get that set up with signage as well.
But that's the plan.
That's the plan, yes. The original plan was that everyone would come through the city lobby, and the city asked us to reconsider that because they weren't sure they could handle the flow of parents. So, and we weren't sure it was the most convenient way to go. So we've changed that just as we were moving in.
Okay, so
Current
do you
plan
have a
is,
sense of approximately,
my guess would be at least about a week.
okay. And then people will be able to come, there'll be a buzzer, and they'll get buzzed in?
That's
or-
correct. And we'll talk to the front office about figuring out how do we make sure
Yeah.
that happens and doesn't fall off to a ringing telephone.
Because if someone's not there at the phone, answering the phone, then they might not be there at the buzzer.
That's right. I need to double check what phone that's ringing to, because the office probably can't distinguish that. Yeah, they don't know if it's a call from someone at home or someone at the gate, so that creates another problem. So we also probably need to consider changing which phone. We have a special loud phone in there that's typically for emergencies, but we might want to consider doing that as well. So we make sure it gets everybody's attention that there's a parent at the door. So we'll look at
Okay.
that.
Great, and I appreciate that. The clanging of the gates that Ms. Collins Rogers has identified on a couple occasions, much better with the
Much
dampening.
better. Yeah.
So, want to
Yeah, those have not been.
simple fix.
Yeah,
a
those
little rubber in
installed,
there?
those are in the original design, but they hadn't been
Okay.
installed until the painting was done.
Okay.
But they're all installed now.
All right, yeah,
Yeah.
that's much improved. And, you know, there's sound dampening on these walls, but I've heard complaints from teachers that the stairwells and the hallways can be quite loud, and also even the rooms above them. So, I don't know if there's dampening, at least something like these in the stairwells. Maybe we need some area rugs in some of the rooms to dampen the sound of the floors, but there might, you know, once we start decorating the halls a little more, I think that'll maybe help some, but.
That's possible. Mr. Baker may not have seen the email yet, but today I emailed Swinnerton asking for a referral because the science labs, as great as they are in many ways, the acoustics are terrible. So we need an acoustical consultant to come back in and tell us what we can do because the sound is not working, and we have some students with special needs around hearing. It is not working for
In here, you're saying, or?
in our science, in
In
our couple
science.
science labs.
Oh.
So we are going to have an acoustical consultant come back. I've asked Swinnerton for a referral. I don't know if it should be the same one or not, depending on how our feelings about it. But I need someone to come in and we can look at the hallways and stairwells as well.
Yeah, the labs, of course, I know about, but that's the first I've heard about the stairwells being an issue, but make sure we add that to our list.
Yeah.
And the
Okay.
band room as well.
I'm sorry?
And the band room, since it's located, it's a little bit of an echo, and I even heard it myself when roaming through the school facility. On the campus, you can definitely hear, not to say that Mrs. Salvatore isn't doing a great job with the students and their instruments, but it definitely can be a distraction to the other classrooms. And then if there can be some type of, like you said, dampening to the walls in the band room as well, because he's moved transition rooms from the beginning.
Yeah, he's here.
And so, yeah, it would be a little more efficient if it was to, you know, tune in the sound to the classroom itself.
Great. Okay. Other questions for Mr. Baker?
Yeah. So I do want to commend you on reaching out and letting me know about the gates. That was definitely something that was not only a hassle in terms of the hearing, but it definitely is a comfort setting. So thank you for that. And as we get to the bottom of the list, especially for you saying there was 3,000 punch list items and now there's 25, we can definitely see that in the atmosphere. But it's all fine and dandy on the outside. It's just a little bothersome that when you do go into the school campus that it's not as organized on the inside of the classrooms. A lot of the teachers are limited in access to storage, and it's not something that they can hide. It's in plain eyesight, especially when I attended back to school night. A lot of the teachers' items are still in boxes, which cannot be comfortable in terms of their curriculum being prepared or for the atmosphere of the classroom itself. So if we can try to work on making sure that they do have proper storage. I know that's been a discussion item previously, but it's something that does need to be in place and immediately. And in terms of, like I said, the band room and the acoustics as well. There was one more thing, but that's just the basis, making sure that these teachers are organized so that their classrooms can be organized so these students can be comfortable. You don't want to have to sit in mayhem and then try to focus, and that becomes a distraction because there's so many items around you that could be placed in a cabinet or some sort. And it's not just one or two classrooms, it's almost every one of them.
Okay. Yes.
Just a quick comment. My
Get a
husband
little closer.
actually, don't grab it. My husband actually rented a classroom over this past weekend to run a statewide judges gymnastics course, which doesn't really matter. But I spoke to many of those judges, and everybody was just expressing how beautiful the school is, how nice it was to have, you know, a classroom in that kind of setting, to be able to use the smart board. So it was just a big highlight, and so I just wanted to share.
Great. Are there questions or comments for Mr. Baker?
Oh, one more question. So on the outside area of the gymnasium, there are several basketball courts. I don't know if I've had a conversation with you or not, but there's so many basketball courts that one actually overrides the concession ticket sign. I was wondering if that was part of the plan or if that was just implemented so that the kids could have some type of play area. But there are, I want to say, about 6 basketball courts outside of a gym, which already includes basketball courts. And I know previously from the Emery that I attended, we had a tennis court and a batting cage in that area as well, which is now just basketball court. So it's an overwhelming experience, although we know our kids do love basketball. But if there can be something that we implement to kind of broaden their horizons in terms of their playing structure.
I think there's got to be, in terms of the physical space, it's relatively flexible. You could do some striping and things like that. It sounds like a lot of kind of a programming. You have to program them. You know, that space is pretty simple, flexible space with striping. You know, if you wanted to, for example, even remove a couple basketball hoops to reconfigure that space to a different type of use, you could do that at pretty low cost. I don't know the history in terms of why there were so many of those courts put in. I'd have to talk to DSK about that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's fairly configurable space out there. If you wanted to make some changes, it would be not that expensive to do that.
Yeah, that would probably need to take place. But thank you.
Are we in questions or discussion? Sorry.
Questions?
I'll wait for discussion.
Okay. Any public comment on this item?
Hello, Todd Ross, Athletic Director, Emery High School. Hey, I just had to comment on some of the things that we talked about, John. And some of the things I think we could do with the striping in that particular area could be something as simple as tetherball, foursquare,
Yeah.
hopscotch. Make it a little more kid-friendly.
Mm-hmm.
And with the sound in the classrooms and the band area, what you need to probably use are sound traps. That's what I use in my studio. So sound traps will soak up most of the noise. It won't get rid of all of it, but it will help. Sound traps, and they're cheap.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other public comment? Thank you for that. All right. Discussion on this item? Mr. Pats?
So I came on Friday evening to the safety fair here and movie. It was the second event I think we've been to it in the quad, and Carolyn Lair, the city manager, was there, and so I took the opportunity to ask her about the flooring out here and whether or not we could put down striping or other activities for kids, because I think it had been mentioned that the city did not want that. And so in talking to her, she was really open to the idea. And so I just want to throw that out there. I think it'd be nice to have, if we're going to use this as a play space, foursquare, hopscotch. And it's not just a matter of painting lines nowadays. If you go to some really new playgrounds, what they're doing is incorporating images and themes that then have those linings within. So it's, you know, maybe 4 corners of the earth inside the foursquare, or a path that is the hopscotch. And so I'd love to see that out there as something that we can do so the kids have a play space. It would be nice to have something much more kid-friendly and engaging. So I just wanted to share that with the board.
Good idea.
That sparked a second idea to that. Might be a really cool project for an art class or an art club to think of something that could incorporate those ideas.
Oh, yeah.
Another good idea.
Being as though it's Spirit Week, and we all know how festive our students, speaking from the past,
And
like
some
to
board
be.
members.
Yeah. You know, it's the passion. I've noticed that there isn't much area for decoration or bulletins, especially in the hallways. And that's something that we've done in the past. I know we don't have to do everything the same, but it would be nice to still have that energy, not only in the hallways, but so that it could trickle into the classroom as well. It's very uptight for these children, for there not to be any bulletin boards for any type of announcements or, any sales that are going on after school or anything that might be going around on campus, or even, city events, since we are, in collaboration with one another. It would be nice to have some type of display boards or something that these children can actually lean into in the hallways that can actually make it a little bit more, like I'm going to consider comfortable, because that's what these children need to be. They need to be comfortable on their school campus. So it would be nice to see something like that displayed or implemented in the near future.
All right, thank you. Okay, any other discussion? This is just an update, not an action item, but I've had some good suggestions come up that I'm sure the superintendent will take under advice. All right, we are on to